Get 5 coffins ready.
What's going on, everybody? Today we're taking a look at the junglers in Smite patch 11.2. So this is going to be for ranked, diamond and below. That's where I have all my experience. So let's get into it. What would be first here? Mr. Ao Kwong. Ao maybe A tier, I would say. Not quite S. He can carry games extremely hard, and execute is always going to be good, but it is a pretty counterable execute, so you basically need to get ahead, or else, yeah, you're also just going to get cleansed every time. Chiron is coming up in the meta. Cleanse is very good into Ao Kwong's ultimate as well, so it could feel pretty rough. There's not too much healing, so that's nice for executes. He's probably going to be the top of A tier, maybe the back of S tier. We'll see where other people lie. Arachne's nice, but I don't think she's perfect or anything. But she can carry mega hard. She's probably going to be the back of A tier, but like, that stun is so oppressive. The stun just comes out instantly, man. Ugh, I hate that they changed that about her, but I mean, she does have to run right up to you to do it, but she runs so fast. She's so fast. With the web and the speed buff, you know how it works. And her build's really annoying with the vital amplifier thing. You can go crit, you can go kins, you can go whatever you need, really. She's a painful god to play against. I hate her with all my heart, but she's pretty good. Can carry you in most situations. Just like the late game is just kind of meh, but I find people don't ult in enough as Arachne. Like sometimes you gotta suicide, bro. That's how it is. It's like with Mercury, and people just refuse to ult in with Arachne. Her ult does like 500 damage and slows. It's really not bad. You just gotta beats as soon as you land, and you can usually combo pretty well. Wheelix is definitely, like, she's a counter pick, but she's still horrifying when she's ahead. When this god gets ahead, I get sad. I get depressed watching this god. Even if she's on my team, she just one-shots everything on the map. Like, if she gets a pull over the wall, and she just basic attacks while she's pulling, and then just pop to, it's gross. This god's gross. And her ultimate late game as, like, a stim, yeah, it's not bad, but the god definitely falls off late game. Much more easy to deal with late game. But she's a complete menace for like 80% of the game. So yeah, definitely still a high tier god. Not so much with Baka. I'll put him maybe in maybe C, because they got a number one thing when I see Bakas do well, because I'm not playing this god, but when I see Bakas do well, it's because the enemy team just underestimates him. They're not beating his ultimate. They're not CC immuning his ultimate with ultimates of their own and stuff like that. They're not trying to power through it. Not respecting his chase down, anything like that. Like, people just disrespecting the god and they get killed for it. So there's definitely still a little something there, but the ganks are terrible. His ganks are so bad unless you're in a good matchup. You know, where the slow is mega impactful and they're not able to get away with it, get away from it by themselves. So something like an AMC or maybe like a Scotty, something along those lines. Yeah, other than that though, it's kind of rough. Bastet might even be A tier. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's nothing the god really does wrong. It's just the damage is a little bit slower than other gods, and a little bit slower, a little bit lower bars. But she has all the tools you need. Yeah, she's like a perfect B tier god. She has everything you need. She has the movement. She has enough CC. She has enough damage. It's just nothing there to really capture you, make you say, that's best deck game. This game here, best deck game. So would I still play Bologna Jungle? I don't really value Bologna Jungle, but if you think you can play it in a certain matchup, it's fine. Camazotz is insanely good in certain matchups. Sometimes there's just too much movement on the enemy team, and you just can't do anything. So that's why I think he's not really an S tier god. When their movement is just limited, not that they don't have any movement, but just that it's limited. Easy S tier. I mean, seriously, this god, if they can't get away from you, he's the best assassin in the game. It's crazy how much damage the god does, and the amount of immunity time he gets in the air as well is really unfair, considering he can do like 1,000 damage with the ultimate. Horrifying. But I would say like that is probably fair. It's just, his early ganks are better than Owl's. I will say that much. Yeah, maybe there. That sounds good to me. But I don't think he's a crazy S tier god because Giannis is in the game. I mean, even Thoth, if you can't blink on the Thoth, if he has to like leap on the Thoth and then try and ult to reach him after he dashes, that can feel pretty bad sometimes. But a lot of the mid laners he can deal with pretty well. But then like if Marty uses his immunity and stuff like that, like if the god gets checked enough, it can be enough to shut him down. And if his 2 gets body blocked, depressing, very depressing. but it doesn't happen every single game or anything. So Cleo's like an okay jungler. I wouldn't say she's like the best jungler in the game. Maybe I'll put her like an A, probably, actually. Below Obelix, I would say. But she actually does a very similar thing to Arachne, where it's literally just you just run around the map killing people over and over again because they can't really ward for you as effectively as they want to, and you can just like cheese weird angles and stuff like that. You just kill over and over again. You just go around killing people. But she's not as quick with it as like an Obelix. She can't pop people quite as hard as an Obelix can. If Obelix gets fed, it's a little bit more, but it's pretty close. And like, but Wheelix has that nice little thing with like counter matchups into people who have leaps and stuff, or if you have knockups on your team. Wheelix is that she can rely on. Cleo is kind of just running around killing people. She's a little bit better at it than Wheelix, like chase down wise usually. Little matchup dependent there, obviously, but yeah, very similar idea with these three gods. I like that order. I mean, sometimes Arachne's better with like the chase down with the three. It really, where you place these two depends on how good Arachne 3 is in that matchup. Because sometimes they just leap over a wall, Arachne 3 doesn't matter. But if they'd have to dash straight, Arachne Web's really good and you're going to be able to catch them. But not every time. Dasi, she's good. There's nothing wrong with the character. It's very Bastet-like. There's nothing wrong with this god at all. Maybe better, yeah, probably better than Bastet. Bastet's a little more flexible, I would say, the Dasi, like movement-wise. Movement-wise, she's a lot more flexible. CC-wise, a little more flexible Bastet is. But Dasi just has a way bigger impact in late-game team fights, because she can hit multiple gods with the ultimate, not just the one. You know, one person can't just body block Bastet ultimate, right? Or can't just body block Dasi ultimate. She forces people into weird situations where they have to use certain CC immunities. You know, they have to build something like an absolution when they don't want to. They have to burn an ultimate just to get out of your ult and stuff. And even if you just like spray 3 ultimates on somebody late game, it's like 900 damage. It's nothing to mess around with. So she does a lot of things well, but she can also get shut down pretty easily. Her 3 is really annoying to deal with in the early game because of the stupid bastions. She can TP her own bastions for some reason. But other than that, she is pretty pickable, actually, if you catch her out in the jungle. But, you know, if she plays it smart, she uses her 2 when you know you can't stop it. She uses her 3 over walls instead of trying to, like, 3 to something in front of you. It can be pretty nice. So I would say a little bit better than Bastet. Fen, I love Fenrir, but he was one of my favorite gods for such a long time. Probably better than Baka, just because the ultimate has really nice teamfight potential. Yeah, Fen, I would probably put it like the top of C. It's just too much stuff breaks his damage. He needs a really good lead so that he can like... Because the thing is, once you get some CDR on Fenrir, you can just leap on people over and over and over again, and that's actually really effective. But yeah, if he's able to get stopped, if he's crippled for God's sake, if he's against an Ares, oh, that god's so useless. So there's a lot of situations where he can just become useless. But if he pops off, he pops off. It's like a Baka, right? Like there's a lot of situations where Baka's just useless. Same with Fen. But if he pops off, he has the potential. I did skip Erlong. I'd probably put Erlong over Bologna in jungle. Achilles as well, probably here. I don't really see the point of playing Achilles jungle. But it's actually very similar to Fen. There's actually a lot of similarities there. Yeah, I like him here. Yeah, a similarity to Fen in the sense of like his chase down isn't that great if he's against too much CC, but he has the for him the execute, for him the grab with the ultimate. Ebo's okay, not maybe in a good matchup. Maybe here that seems fair for me. Adapting really loved this god at the start of the season. I think he was just stomping people who weren't as good as him. That's the main thing I think he was doing. But, you know, if Arachne's going to be up here, yeah, maybe let me put her at the top of B. Have him here? That looks right to me. I like that. He does so much damage. It's criminal. It's scary. His level 2 gank's really bad, though. That's what I don't like about him. That's the main thing. He can't pressure level 2. He can't pressure in the mid lane. He runs out of mana instantly in early game. Yeah, I'd put him like here. Maybe keep Arachne there. It's hard to deny Arachne can just carry a game so easily. And there's so much cheese you can do with this god with like mannequins as well. Like invading with mannequins is so good with Arachne. It's depressing. It's very depressing, but can't deny it's good. Hunbats is pretty good. His ult is nice. His ult is always going to be nice. But in a lot of matchups, that's all he can do. His is actually in the level 2 ganks. His core kit's actually pretty good. But then once it starts really coming time for ganks, where like every assassin is ulting every single gank, Yeah, he starts falling behind because the ultimate. I think gotta just reduce the cooldown again because he doesn't even have CC immunity on his ultimate. Just make his ultimate 90 seconds. I don't know why they made his ultimate. I don't think it's 110 seconds, something like that, and it scales down as you level it. It's so stupid. It kills the character because you can't pressure out early game because his ultimate's always on cooldown, and you got to go Jotuns early to try and get it down. But even then, that just brings if you get Jotuns, it brings it down to like what the cooldown should be by default, and it's still way longer than everyone else's. So it's kind of rough. Do you have any advice when playing against a Hebo jungle? It is a little matchup dependent for sure. You got to have someone with really hard lockdown who doesn't care about the slow and the Atlas thing. So like Arachne's good into it, Cleo's pretty good into it. But then like someone like Ow, he can't really chase him. Someone like Hunbats can't chase him too well. Yeah, it's just don't let him play at range. You can't let him play at range. And the thing is, he creates range with his 2. So it's how well can you play around the 2. If you can't play around it, then just don't try and fight him because he's always going to be able to get out of range in you. I see some Giannis jungle. I think it's okay in good matchups. He doesn't quite bring as much damage as top tier assassins late game though. That's my only problem. Because like if he gets rolling, yeah, he can invade your jungle like no tomorrow. His ganks are okay. But yeah, I don't really see too much of a point in that. I don't think it's god awful or anything. It's just not great. Kolie's weird. I don't know. She can still pop off. I think she's probably better than Baka and Fen. I would say so. Yeah, I mean, her early game is so rough, man. Like you gotta like the thing is though, your jungler, if you're against Kolie, your jungler has to have the wherewithal to invade the Kolie and make sure she stays behind because it is really easy to invade Kolie because her clear is so bad early game. But with the advent of mannequins being what it is now, it is a little bit better for her, but her mana sustain's really terrible still. So you can try and bleed her out, like force her to try and come over to you and gank and not farm. Yeah, it could be rough because you could bleed her out pretty well early game, and then late game her damage just isn't what it used to be. She doesn't have the pen there anymore for her target, so she can't eat through auras as easily. And but her build's coming together now. More of her items are more relevant, so that's helpful for her. She doesn't have to try and like force a crit build or anything weird like that anymore. So that's nice. She can get a nice and cheap build. Definitely no haste in Katana though. I've written that item off. It's just terrible. Kumba jungle. Sure, I'll put it there. Honestly, Kuzumba probably wouldn't be too bad as a jungler. Whoops. Where did I put Kumba? There he is. Honestly, maybe. If you had like triple ADC, you could probably go that. If you're against triple ADC, I mean. Alright, Lance next, and then Loki. Yeah, Lance is super... It's like Hunbats, where it's very matchup dependent. Like, how effective is your chase down? Is chasing these people down extremely effective? Great. Okay, Lance is really good. If like we don't need all that chase down and we prefer having more lockdown and more damage, then Lance just like there's no point. Because Lance does a lot of damage. He's like budget Wheelix, it feels like to me, for the most part. Because Wheelix is better at assassinating people, generally speaking, I think. And Lance is just like he's a little better at moving around the map, better at chasing people down. But it's just you need to be able to dash. Like, you need to be against dashes as Lance. If you're against leaps as Lance, there's no point to the character because they just leap over walls. I mean, the cripple's nice. The cripple's nice to try and stop people from leaping at all. But if he just feels really counterable a lot of the time. And cripples, not too prevalent, but cripples against this god really suck. And Thor, with his wall, stops him from being on the horse, so that's really rough. Surtur's pretty relevant too, but you're probably not going to waste your Surtur 2 on this guy, but still. You get what I mean. Probably better than Hunbats, though. I'll probably put him above Hunbats. Loki's similar to these gods. Maybe here. Yeah, I would say here. Just because he could cheese a lot. A lot like Arachne. There's just so much stuff you could cheese with Loki. Lots of easy invades with this god. You just ult away over a wall if you get caught too hard. Or you could just invis out and try and cheese something that way. Camp clear is extremely good. His ganks are pretty good. Not amazing, but pretty good. As good as like a Cleo. Probably as good as a Cleo. Maybe not as good as Arachne. But yeah, Loki answers a lot. His damage is really amazing late game. His poke is ridiculous late game. A lot of good reasons to play this god. Just, I think like the carry potential isn't quite as high as like an Wheelix because you can't run around the map like a Wheelix and Cleo can. His damage is solid, but not as fast as Ow. And Camazotz just has better chase down and more immunity time. Like straight up immunity time, not like Invis, I hope they don't catch me. Mama is still good. I don't know if she's S tier though. She's definitely good though. I don't know if she's as good as Ow, because Ow is basically Mama, just with an execute instead of a knock up. And I think execute wins most of the time. She's super tricky to deal with, so annoying to deal with. But she is beatable. Just don't let her sit in your face and just one you over and over again. Don't let her do that. By that I mean don't let her get in range to do that, because obviously if she's in range she's just going to do it for free. You can't stop her, which is annoying, but yeah. And the late game damage is really solid, but all you have to do is play around your team and the god starts to suck. She really does. It's really hard to play her. Full damage, you usually got to go some sort of bruiser build. Not bruiser, but like at least one defense item on her, because you got to be there and you got to sit in people's faces for a little while, get your dots out, and get your passive up so that you can have a big ultimate and actually have an impact in the late game team fights. Because her straight 1v1 kill potential isn't as good as Aoklong's. But late game it's around a Wheelix's, but a Wheelix is more mobility. And has the looming threat of the ultimate as well. She has a matchup to deal with that, or matchup to utilize that, I should say. So who's next? That was Mama, so Merc, right? Mercury, I would say, is still probably S. I don't know. It's hard to say because like Spectral's in the game, Deathbringer is nerfed, but you can still get 100% crit pretty easily, pretty freely. But I mean, crit is his bread and butter, and it is nerfed. But he does do so much damage. It's kind of ridiculous. And his ganks early are pretty good. But you know what? I would say Camazotz, I think, is a little bit better. Just because of the immunity Camazotz brings. It's a lot like Mercury, except like you're trading the decent CC from Mercury Ultimate for like way more damage on an Ultimate with full immunity time. So it's a lot better for diving on the whole. So since the damage isn't quite what it was, I'd put him like here. I still prefer him to an Owl on most days. Maybe Owl a little bit better. But that's where the buck would stop, I think. He's still really solid. Very hard to beat. Nasha's in a weird spot. I would put him like Hunbats, though. So in that case, I would bring maybe like Achilles up here. I have to play more Achilles jungle, personally. But Nasha is solid, though. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with the character other than the fact that he can only ult one person. That's kind of the only thing. It's not like a Bastet in that regard, but he's a little less straightforward than Bastet, and there's no guarantees about your damage, really. That to me is the main issue. Way less guaranteeable damage. It's a bit of a coin flip if you're gonna mind game the opponent correctly and force out their cleanses and CC immunities in time, or are they just do they just know if I just don't get ulted I won't die here, so let me just not cleanse anything other than the ultimate and hover over the F key essentially. So that's my issue with him, but he is versatile. He's a pain to deal with. You can go regrowth on him, and it feels really good. It's really hard to deal with the regrowth Naja because the regrowth in your 2, they basically have the same cooldown. So he could be painful to deal with. It's just not. He doesn't have like a team fight impact like Hebo, Lance, Hunbats. He's more like an individualistic high impact. I hit this guy for 1400. Can you finish him off for me, please? Thank you. Yeah, that type beat. But he's also good for like taking out like a. Like, if you can blink ult a Marty, blink ult like an Anhur, Hachiman, stuff like that, if you can blink ult somebody out of the fight, then it's like, oh, well, the team fight's almost free now. So, yeah. And obviously, I recommend you go full damage other than the regrowth on Naja. I think you do need to pump out damage. I think going like Bruiser Naja is pretty bad. Next, Nem. Nem's weird. She's a weird god, but she's definitely good. Maybe back here. I like Nem a lot. She can 1v1 anybody, obviously. She's like, her pass is built around doing that. She sucks into hard CC, and so many good assassins have insane hard CC, as you'll see. Most of them are in the second half of the god list, I guess. But yeah, most of them just strip her shield right off. There's a lot of good guardians right now that just go to town on her if she doesn't beads. And her only CCs are slows, which is fine. But there is like this horrific emblem to like slow her back, or sprint if you want like a root sprint. Nem starts to suck, but she has a lot of good ult targets in the game though. There's a lot of good mages she can ult to slow them down, like especially like a Thoth. Right now is a really good Nem ult target. Things like an Ares, Ganesh, Khepri, stuff like that. She just lets you one shot tanks and like the warriors too. The problem some warriors. that's English. The troublesome warrior is like Bologna and stuff. You just ult them, and then they just die. If anyone on your team's paying attention anytime you ult well, they'll just die. So you can't really deny that from her, that she does have that going for her. I probably wouldn't play Nike jungle anymore, even though she is fun. Well, you know, if I have Achilles on here, I would put Nike there. I think that's, yeah, there, and do that. Odin jungle is okay too. There's kind of no point unless you're really, 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 really worried about, let me put this here, about healers. So maybe like there. That's good. It's just another counter pick option, but it's just one of those things where it's like, well, why am I doing that? Osiris is good though. I think he's a pretty good jungler. There's just no point to play him outside of a lane because his laning phase is so good. He bullies out basically everybody in laning phase, so you might as well play him in a lane. If you want to go jungle though, he's fine. He's just very slow reliant, so if the enemy team is good into slows, the god's pointless. There's no point to the god if there's too many slows. And the only reason he's so good in the solo lane is because you don't need to worry about that for most of the game. You just get so strong and so tanky that it doesn't matter that you're slowing over and over again. You can survive for long enough to do the slow so much that they can't use their slow immunities against you anymore. But obviously if you're going jungle, you want a little bit of damage. You're not going to have that survivability. So it's way more matchup dependent. Maybe so matchup dependent that you want to put him down. No, I'd put him there. And I forgot about Gilga. I would say Gilga's probably the best out of these gods. Maybe better than Baka. Better than Fen and Kolie. Like on par with Kolie. It's similar. It's like Kolie brings more damage, but Gilgamesh brings more CC and early damage. You know what? Early is more important right now, so I'll put him like there. That's where I'll put him. Glad I remembered him, because otherwise I would not have put him on a tier list at all. Well, support, he probably has a little place in support. But you gotta go damage though. So who was I on? Who was IE as being? I think down here. Pele's probably the next one, right? Yeah, it looks like it. Pele's good. I mean, it's another one like Bastet. Like, there's nothing wrong with the god. She just doesn't quite do enough damage when it comes to the late game because her ultimate, it's just too slow. The burst just isn't there in the late game. A lot like these other gods. Dasi's is the best, so I'll put her there. Probably below Hebo. Because they do similar things where it's like, but he does it at range though. He can knock up and slow at a range, which is what Pele's all about, and do a bunch of damage at a range. That's what, you know, basically just Pele's just weaker Hebo, generally speaking. I still like Pele a lot. Really fun god. You can carry on her pretty easily every single game. Her blink game is a little bit better than Hebo's. Her chase, in certain matchups, her chase is better than Hebo's. So there's some interchangeability, but generally speaking, yeah, I think there is fair. Okay, can I get to an S tier jungler already? I would say Rat is probably back of S tier. Just his damage is good. It's not great, but the thing is, he just does it over and over again. It's so painful, and the global ultimate is really, really effective as well. His level 2 gank is ridiculously strong. It's just he has really effective tools that he can use over and over and over and over and over again. It's not just like a one and done thing like an Alquang or a Mercury, where he runs out of tricks and it's like, oh, I'm gonna die. There's so many little things Rat can do to keep himself in the fight and be effective. Like you blink stun, you do a trillion billion damage with your basic attack, and then you just ult out of the fight. Then it's like, oh no, I can actually just ult right back in because my ult lasts for 10 seconds. And the fight went really well because I almost one-shot someone. So then you come right back. And then in the laning phase, of course, same deal. You don't need to global ult into somebody. You can just blink on them and then dash on them and then ult them and they die. So I don't know. Rat's just a very short thing, but he's going to be at the back of S tier. All right, Beals, you hear that? Rat's going to be at the back of S tier. Robin next, right? Yeah. It's hard to deny that Robin's good. He's just not great, I don't think. Put him like here. His level 2 gank is extremely good. But past that, I mean, he can carry games pretty hard, but he can't roam around the map like a Wheelix can. But I would say he's probably better than Pele. But he can't burst as hard as Hebo late game, even though, yeah, his damage is better than Pele, so I'll put him there. His chase down's not quite as good as Pele's, though. He's just good. You can pick him like every game and it's fine. Yeah, he just doesn't quite have the rotation power, doesn't quite have the CC power. He just has a lot of damage and a lot of early damage too. So it's nice to have him. It's good to have him. But it's not like a sure thing win. Like Serqet. Like Serqet's good. She's good. It's just she's just a lot more not situational necessarily. It's just the way you have to play her is a little bit different in every single fight, and her effectiveness depends on how you're able to play her. Like, are you able to taunt two people? No? Okay, just taunting the one. Okay, that's probably still pretty good, a lot of damage. But the little taunt, where is it going to put them? Is it going to put them towards their teammate, or is it going to bring it towards Serqet? If it goes towards their teammate, it's not nearly as good. You got to ult them right after that. You can't even squiggle them because they're going to get out in time. It's a little rough with Serqet sometimes, but the god's still good. A lot of movement, pain to deal with, real pain to deal with. Versatile in her builds. She can hyper carry or go tank. It's just not quite effective right now, is all. It's the only problem. So Serqet. A lot of S gods here. Set is pretty good in jungle, not great though. I would say he's like what the warriors want to be down here, so I'll put him like at the back of here. It's just too easy to shut down. That's my only issue with the god. He's just too easy to shut down. Obviously the idea is you don't want to chase people, you want to burst people as hard as possible. You can't do that for most of the game though, so that's why he's generally considered like a mid laner, because you farm up really hard in the mid lane. You can make minor impacts here and there by doing quick rotations, but if your main idea is like farm a bit, gank a lot, Set can't do that. His ganks aren't nearly good enough, and if he gets invaded and stuff, gets put behind, the god is such a potato god. If he gets put behind, I think we're starting to get to the actually good gods, boys. Let's go. Scylla jungle is honestly not bad. I would put it like above Giannis, maybe a little above Giannis. Yeah. I suppose S. Yeah. Susano. Definitely S tier. Chase is amazing. Late game damage is absolutely ridiculous on this god. The pull is such good CC. The teleport gives so many mind games. The ultimate is absurd at any point of the game. Great god. Other than when the ult bugs out. You have seen it on my stream before. It hits them dead on, doesn't hit. When it doesn't do that, it's an amazing ultimate. So there you go. High res. Don't you just love high res? But yeah, the only issue is his early game is really bad. He can't really level 2 gank. Unless he's like against Kolie or something, someone like a really passive level 2 ganker, like a Baka too. Something really weak like that. Then he can level 2 gank. But other than that, like he's gonna lose every level 2 gank you go on with him. So that's a bit of a problem. Other than that though, I mean, just farm up. It's fine. Thana, people feel like Thana fell off. I don't know why. I think people got better at playing against Thanatos. I think that's the number one thing. I think people were kind of like intimidated by Thanatos at the start of the season, and they kind of let him run at them. And I think that's why people got in their head, oh, this got so broken. I can't believe it. Because obviously he does more damage than anybody, really, for most of the game. But like, if you just CC him with the right CC at the right time, he's 100% dead. Like, just don't pick too many slows into him, and you're fine. And if you're really that scared of him, you can just ban him. I mean, but I don't think you need to be that scared of him. Just deep ward. I think there are flaws with the character, obviously, but I think he still does a ton of damage early game, and it's extremely effective. You can get extremely ahead. His late game isn't amazing, but if he just gets it rolling, like, it's so ridiculous how good it can be. But you got to get out of your head when it comes to like mid to late to stop like doing your own thing. Why did I do that? You got to stop doing your own thing and play with the team. But the thing is, Thanatos plays with the team really well. If he works off someone else's CC, gets a scythe, it's a ton of damage. Enable someone with a kill for the enable someone a kill with the silence. Yeah, he's really good at that too. I mean, silence is super effective, even though it is a little slow. You know, it is a slow silence, but I think it's still great. And the execute, so nasty. 35%, I think, or 40%. It's ridiculous how high that execute goes. And he's such a good tank killer for that. And he's obviously not as counterable as Ao Kuang. Yeah, I think he does everything like someone like Ao Kuang wants to do, but he's actually even safer because he can use his ult as an escape if he really wants to. Yeah, I see a few flaws here and there with like the CC. You know, he's susceptible to some CC, and if he gets over, if he tries to dive too hard and doesn't get the kill, like his teammate takes the kill, and then he dies, it feels a little bad. But yeah, Thor I think is probably the best jungler in the game. Just so much damage and so much range. Like, who outranges this guy on this list? I'm actually checking. Giannis, who's not even really a jungler. Mercury with his ultimate, maybe. Actually, I think the ultimate range is about the same. Like in terms of regular kit abilities, maybe Hebo can match it with the 3 on his hammer. Lance 3-1. Like literally like little pippets here and there. Maybe have similar range to Thor. But Thorball, it's the longest thing in the world and it stuns you. And then the hammer does 640 damage, I think. 630. Like crazy, man. It's crazy what this god's able to do. And the global ultimate is obviously insanely impactful. All the globals are really good right now. And Thor's is probably the strongest because it's so fast and harder to predict than most other ones. Way harder to see coming than a Thana or a Rat ultimate. So good. So good. And it's so it's a fun portion of the character. It's fun to play him because there's so many options you can go for and like bait people into using their movement abilities when you still have access to hammer or wall. But it makes it so painful to deal with. Yeah, great god. Tsukiyomi, he's okay. He's okay. He's another one like Set, where it's like, I just want to farm with this god, to be honest, and just get really strong for the late game and like 1v1 people in the lane. I don't really want to gank with this god that much. His ganks can be good, but it's like a... Who are we looking at here? It's like a Baka type of thing, where it's like you need it to be a good matchup where your CC really matters. Because I mean, if they just let you walk up to them and to them, you got lucky there. And the ultimate isn't always effective, but there aren't Aegises early, really. I mean, the last time I saw an Aegis early was like at the start of the season when I was at 1500 MMR. That was the last time I saw Aegis first, so that's nice. But the ult doesn't do that much damage early, though. That's the thing. So it's hard to get leads with him because ganks are a little more difficult, but his level 2 is pretty good. But yeah, I digress. And you need a lot of farm on him. So if you need to be perma-ganking because you're against like a global or something, he's not nearly as effective in my opinion. Yeah, I think maybe... He actually does a lot of the same stuff Lance does. Maybe a little bit better. I'll put him like there. He's still pretty good though. There's a Sook, so here. Oh, Surtur Jungle. Surtur Jungle is pretty good actually. But like, about Set, probably. Yeah. Very similar to Achilles, but I prefer Achilles' ultimate for a jungler, for sure. What about Mulan Jungle? I wish. The Sino special, yeah. Scream 2, actually. I haven't played Morgan Le Fay jungle this season, so I probably wouldn't place it. Baka is okay in jungle bars. But maybe down here. Or maybe here? Yeah, I think here is fair. It's just a waste of the character, though, is the only problem. But if you pick him here, it's still playable. Alright, let me go through the list real quick. Chalk jungle? Nah, I wouldn't play that. You couldn't ban me to play that. That's because I hate Chalk, though, so he'll probably go... Dance jungle? Maybe like there. If Freya's ganks are actually okay because of the slow. It just depends how effective the slow is. Either. Poseidon jungle? I haven't seen it really. I would say it's probably there though. Okay. That looks good. Alright. So that is my tier list. Do you love it? Do you hate it? What would you change about it? Thank you for watching. I forgot to say that in the other ones. Don't be mean.